Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pity that I cannot sit with you in Paris. I had too long a trip and I picked up a stomach bug along the way, so I had to come home for some treatment. Michel Demar asked me to make a presentation as part of this session on what importance is attached to maintenance in the projects financed by development banks. And this is sort of a double-edged sword. I think if you talk to the development banks, they will all think, are you kidding us? We are actually looking after, and we are saying that maintenance is extremely important. But as it is, if you look at the projects that we have supported over the years, you do not see a lot of maintenance activities included. And there are quite a number of reasons to this, and many of them are institutional. I just want to share a couple with you. In the past, and currently to a lesser extent, so we were reluctant to finance maintenance. The reason for this was we prefer to rather finance the larger expenditures in a project because our assessment is these larger expenditures are placing an excessive burden on national finances, and if we can take care of it, it can spread out the financial burden of such rehabilitation and improvement over a longer period of time. So the other incentive that we also have is we want to finish our projects as soon as possible. So you like to if you talk to the senior management, they would prefer to have shorter term projects rather than a longer term projects. And if you think of maintenance activities, you are talking of a longer term presence because it does not help to do maintenance for 1 year or 2 years only. Also, what I found in our organization, the longer term low disbursement type arrangement was a bit frowned upon in the beginning when we started changing our approach from just doing rehabilitation to also including maintenance. We usually left the recurrent expenditure to government. And what we also did, and I've seen this in several countries, we would ask a letter of sector policy that would provide us the, if you can call it the guarantee, that government would commit to allocate adequate maintenance funding after the project has been completed. Now, we had mixed results with this, and from a technical point of view, when I look at the question that Michel asked me, I thought with a smile, the question is actually a question that has two parts. And the answer is it can be given in two parts. Maintenance is extremely important for the banks. We would like to see maintenance being done because it really has an impact on the longevity of the initial investment. Will we get a sustainable lifetime out of the asset? If Andreas Schiessler, a colleague of mine, he and Mr. Boel wrote a book in 1992, and this, to me, sums up what the problem is. In the beginning, if you just do the initial rehabilitation with no routine and periodic maintenance, you have actually shorter life cycles. We all know this. If you add routine maintenance, the life cycle becomes a little bit longer. And if you go to the conservation type life cycle, then the asset is really preserved. We have, as the banks have slowly changed, and here I know that the Asian Development Bank and the African Development Bank has also moved to a longer term, to supporting longer term contracts. All the studies and the reports showing the importance of timely maintenance, we have contributed to this discussion on several occasions during the years, and I don't have to go back to any of these. PIARC has also recently just published a publication on this, which is fully endorsed. One thing that we realized is there will never be sufficient funds for all planned road activities. So if you go with a project to a government and you ask for a letter of sector policy to provide sufficient maintenance funding, it is very difficult for the government to do that. And also, if you look at, this is just a cartoon that I picked up in South Africa from a newspaper there. This person is sitting reading his Sunday morning newspaper and a fly comes in. And he decides to use a hammer and he demolishes the table and the cup of tea and everything. In terms of effectiveness, this is perhaps a good idea, but in terms of efficiency, he could have used the fly swath. And this type of approach has started us thinking along the idea of performance-based contracting. For us, we started with performance-based contracting in the late 80s, early 90s. The most notable start was in Argentina with the now world known CREMA projects. This model has been replicated in many South American countries. Also, another issue that pushed us into the direction of looking at performance-based contracts is our attempts to establish pavement management systems did not bring the desired results. In many cases, the pavement management system would be set up, would be fully developed. The first set of assessments would be done on the road condition, and then when the project is completed, nothing further is done. I've recently been in Ghana, and there the Ghana Highways Authority has a problem that even with their pavement management system, some of the decisions as to where funds should be allocated is not based on the reports of the pavement management system. So there are quite a number of issues, and we just decided to work on performance-based contracts. It is not yet a general approach, but wherever we engage with clients, the clients find it very receptive, or are generally very receptive to change to the contracting methodology. 3 weeks ago, I was in Nepal, and it was very interesting. The client did an assessment of a performance-based maintenance contract that they did about 6, partly financed by the World Bank and partly financed by the Asian Development Bank. And out of this, part of the reason for the assessment was the client found that although there were problems with the performance-based maintenance contracts, and they at the time did not want to extend the contracts, what they have now, without the performance-based contracts, is worse than they had before. So they are ready to develop the second generation of performance-based contracts that also includes the problems and the lessons learned from the first generation of contracts. So wherever we start with the introduction of these contracts, there is a general acceptance, but usually clients need considerable support to fully understand the finer details of this contracting methodology. Our current approach, if I can quickly go through it, with the FIDIC Red Book, we have usually the construction contracts and the supervision contracts for the supervision consultant. We have also supported quite a lot of performance-based maintenance management contracts. These contracts focus on maintenance. They have a special set of problems. Long-term performance of the roads is a risk if you want to transfer it fully to the contractor, because he was not in control of the initial construction. Our standard or our approach that, okay, thank you. Sorry for the interruption. I don't know how much of this slide I shared, but just quickly, under the FIDIC Red Book approach, we usually, as multilateral development banks, use the Red Book as a basis for construction contracts, and then we have the supervision contracts that are associated with them. We have also developed in the late 90s the performance-based maintenance and management road contracts, focusing only on maintenance activities. These are a special group of contracts because you cannot really transfer the long-term risks to the contractor. Is there a problem with the connection? I am speaking English. Is it fine? I am continuing. What the bank has done over time is develop a new contracting methodology, more on an asset. Sorry. You cannot hear me? Our OPRC output and performance-based road contracting methodology. This is based on design, build, operate, maintain, and transfer technologies, transferring the risk of the initial construction, the design and construction to the contractor, and then he must maintain the road for a specific period thereafter. Of course, if you look at the higher volume roads, you have the total asset management contracts where the private sector brings financing to the deal as well. If we look at the current approach, what the World Bank currently has, and because of the, just an aside here, I won't be able to take any questions and provide answers. I added my email address on the top right-hand side, but I made a typing error. It's bgericke@worldbank.org. If you send me any questions by email, I'll respond to you afterwards. Our current approach is for paved roads, a 7 to 10 year contract duration. For unpaved roads, a 5-year contract duration. We have a strong emphasis on the risk identification and allocation. This ranges from overloading control to availability of finance to contractors, to strength of contractors, to the strength of the consulting industry, and so forth. We have developed a payment model that postpones part of the initial rehabilitation, not costs, payments, to the maintenance services phase. And this whole payment model is the basis on which the eventual lump sum amount of the contract is divided. We allow for longer bidding periods because the contractors now have to come out to site and see what they have to design. To smooth out or to make the bidding process easier, we use the details of the concept design as a minimum specification to ensure that the bid prices that we receive is at least for something similar. What we tell bidders is the eventual contractor may propose to amend the design as per the general conditions of contract. And we do allow this. It has happened a couple of times, and I've run out of time, otherwise I can share with you a couple of examples. Some suggested next steps. Our sample bid document that you can see on our website needs to be updated quite urgently. Within the bank, we are working to strengthen our own knowledge, internal knowledge and experience. And we are also looking at ways to have closer collaboration among all multilaterals to share the lessons learned of this implementing this new contracting methodology. In conclusion, maintenance is extremely important. We must just decide who must finance it and how to structure the contract. If government will finance it, the multilateral development banks must assess the risk of maintenance funding not being provided during after the initial construction has been completed. If there is if the risk for this is quite high, then we should consider doing a longer-term performance-based contract. I think I have finished. Thank you.